Hello there, fearless friends. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you could be here for last week's poem, Allard's Redemption. It is always such a pleasure to hear your thoughts and ideas on the channel. Today, we embark on the first of another two-part series. The poem's title is simply Ghostly, and the poem itself is certainly that. It is about a prison-like home for pregnant young women, run by the ghastliest group of women you could ever imagine, and haunted by a little girl who never had the chance to be a woman. What happened there, and what secrets the place holds, I will soon reveal. So grab a cool drink and a cushion for your feet, and join me for the first part of Ghostly. Ghostly. Part 1. They say the soul of the girl, Angelita, had been at Caxton Hall 100 years, before young Gracie May stood in its doorway, her pretty, pale face wreathed in bitter tears. Few people knew how Angelita got there. A lovely, dark-haired girl of 6 years old. Her ghost had much better than mere mortal strength. She walked whenever winter nights were cold. She wept louder whenever rainstorms beat down on the manor. Her sharp, piteous cries rang through the home, sometimes shattering glass panes and admitting the fury of the skies. 17 families in that century had Angelita sent running away. She treated the manor as her possession, from its foundations to its roof of gray. Perhaps it was. What's known of the girl's story comes from an old housekeeper's diary. She writes that the old master was a cruel man who one night assaulted her sweet baby, probably her daughter, who was a housemaid, a loyal worker who was just 15. Apparently, while in the library, he locked the door, and no one heard her scream. Later, the housekeeper mourns that her daughter was showing the fruit of her master's sin. She discusses ways to conceal the swelling. The pair, it seems, did not want help from him, nor expect it would be offered if he knew the girl to be big-bellied with his child. Indeed, the housekeeper feared their dismissal and ejection into the outer wild. Both women were dependent on their master. The housekeeper's husband was in the grave. They had no money or home but the manor. If cast out, nobody would their lives save. So, they concealed the pregnancy and childbirth. Angelita came screaming to the world. She was a strong infant, ruddy and thriving. But hours later, the housekeeper's girl slipped the mortal coil. The butler buried her, in secret, just inside of the church wall. Angelita might have died of starvation, but another servant answered the call. She'd recently delivered her own infant, and her body was quick with rich fluid. She nursed her own babe, then nursed Angelita. And no one marked, nor cared just what she did. Angelita was hidden as the years passed. She scarcely knew that she was in hiding. Sadly, as she grew older, she grew sadder. With no mother and father yet living, she wanted for care. She was smart, curious, and would roam around the house in the night. When she was 5, the master of the house wed. His new bride could do no wrong in his sight. The housekeeper brought Angelita to her as an orphan to be her little maid, her pet and entertainment. The housekeeper knew that she need no longer be afraid. She'd be discovered as her own granddaughter, and they'd be cast out for stealing their food. If the new wife accepted Angelita, her grandmother warned the girl must be good and obey the fine, young, and pretty lady. She promised Annalita if she did, that later she would be allowed more schooling and taught to read as rich folks' children did. So Annalita became a pretty slave. The master's young wife quite doted on her. The master would not have chosen one so young, but his wife begged that he would accept her, and he'd deny her nothing. He didn't see that Annalita shared his dark blue eyes. He didn't remember the sweet, young housemaid he'd treated in a way all should despise. He simply patted little Annalita and offered the child a bitter candy. His wife hugged her and called her little princess. So, for a short time, the girl was happy. Things changed, however. Soon, there was excitement in the household. A child was on the way, the master's first legitimate child at that. An heir to the fortune, some men might say. Annalita helped the lady to prepare for the newborn, confinement and lying in, and all else she might need, without any thought. She looked forward, with eager giggling, to the arrival of the little master. There was no bitterness in her young heart. She did not know she also should have been wanted, and awaited with joy right from the start. It was not until the lady's confinement, even to the birth of the dear baby, that Annalita learned sorrow could occur, even from an event that seemed happy. The labor was hard, but the child came safely. To the lady's surprise, it was a girl. You might have guessed the master would be angry. Instead, the infant became his whole world. Her mother, too. When the wife first held her close, she was besotted with her eldest child. But Annalita, who had been her small pet, was now rejected, spat on and reviled. Annalita was clever but innocent. She wept at night because she could not see why those she'd given loyalty and sweetness could turn upon and hurt her suddenly. The housekeeper was nice and tried to help her, but there was only so much she could do. When you are a servant, it isn't easy to halt what your employers wish to do. Annalita endured almost a full year. It was suggested that another maid should take her place since Annalita bothered the lady so. Her babe had a nursemaid, a wet nurse too. The master's wife even had a young lady to keep her company on the days when the master left for business. She had no need of a servant's baby, but the lady's cruelty was of a strange kind. Although Annalita's face vexed her so, her sweetness and her voice a provocation, the master's wife would not let the child go. So, Annalita learned of welts and bruises, hunger, weeping and cold, dark sleepless nights. Despite it all, she didn't hate the baby, who changed her world to darkness out of light. No, Annalita loved little Maria. She watched her with a kind and careful eye. She'd even rock Maria in her small arms when her ladyship could not stand her cry. One day, when the young heiress to the manor was 1 year old, a fresh delivery arrived at the door. Annalita was told, "Go down and fetch the package up for me." The child went with goodwill. Anything new would lift her spirits up, even a new face. Besides, it was hard for her mistress to find fault with her when her feet could fly the place. The toy maker had left the package in the far hallway, a doll for the little girl. His card said, "It was 6 weeks in the making. There is no other like it in the world." Annalita did not think for one moment that the girl the artisan meant was her. Rude awakenings were frequent for servants. Nothing so fine was meant for such as her. You be careful with that, the butler warned her. If you break it, they'll wring your neck for you. Or, worse, they will turn you over to the law. Don't think they'd hesitate in hanging you. Angelica nodded. Her stomach rumbled. She'd not been allowed food in 2 full days. Still, it was with awe and profound reverence. She slid the box open and watched the rays of sunlight shine upon the face of the doll, so pink and white, with curling pale blonde hair. Angelica could work 100 lifetimes and never afford a treasure so rare. Even in dreams, her hopes did not soar that high. Still, as long as she had it in her hands, she could believe that someone loved her enough to commission a doll, to set their plan, to give it to her, just to see her face smile. If only such a person she could be. She'd be warm, safe, kissed, caressed, and cuddled close, instead of spending nights cold and hungry. Alas, the girl hesitated too long. She kept shoving thoughts of duty far away. Oh, she'd not have kept the doll. She was no thief. She only wanted the feeling to stay, of almost being loved and being needed. The master's wife found her still standing there, her glossy head bent over the doll and box, her back to the very edge of the stairs. Perhaps the mistress thought the girl would rob her. Maybe she was just tired and angry. For even a woman with many servants takes time to recover from a baby. Either way, she shrieked in outrage and darted forward, in horror at being caught there. Angelica froze. The mistress took the box. Then, not thinking of the height of the stairs, slapped Angelica so hard that the young girl spun around and then plummeted straight down, head over heels, over 3 flights of wood stairs, to the stone floor that split apart her crown. Angelica was quite dead, her heartbeat gone, before her body had completely stilled. From the landing, the lady watched in horror the spreading blood of the child she had killed. Somewhere in the kitchens, the kind housekeeper thought she heard the voice of her mistress call. She dried her hands upon her apron, and then she hurried out into the vast main hall, only to find her granddaughter as broken as a marionette with a snapped string, and the lady staring down from above her, whose mouth opened wide and began screaming. Thus runs the story of sweet Angelica, who died for pausing seconds in a dream. She was buried not in the formal churchyard, but hard by the edge of a local stream. Still, she was seen again, many times over, traipsing around the hall, upon the stair, and in other rooms. The family soon moved. They could no longer stand to remain there. The manor changed hands. Still, the ghost girl was seen. In a true sense, she was the manor's heir. Rumors of her spread far and wide. She was still known of by the time young Gracie came there. The year Gracie arrived was 1950. The scars of a world war were still brand new. The rules of life back then were cruel and rigid. Women, in particular, early knew that they could only do things in one order. The house had now become a women's home, meant for girls who'd been abused, scorned, or foolish, and fallen pregnant, then been left alone. Gracie was 6 weeks gone. Her language teacher had held her back at school one dark fall day. By the time he had let her leave the classroom, young Gracie had been in the family way. 5 weeks later, she'd been stood in the doorway of the cold house where other mothers were, confined in chains, not made out of cold iron, but just as substantial as those that were. Gracie didn't know what to do, what to think. Her mother had said when she went away, "You have the baby, then you come back to us. But if you even try to run away, you'll have no home to return to, no family. You and the brat can starve out on the street, or you can make your living flat on your back. Just be certain we'll never again meet." The nuns would care for Gracie till her child, son or daughter, appeared. The babe would stay in her arms a few days, but then the women, cold in their wimples, would take it away. And then what? A part of Gracie would be gone, one that could not by action be reclaimed. If she fought to protect her child, she would be, by all, cast away. Worse, she would be blamed as a slattern. Yet, if she sat numbly by and let the nuns discard a piece of her, she never again would breathe without hurting. Indeed, she thought the act might well damn her. Her own mother, who once had carried Gracie, who'd kissed her face and smelled her infant hair, had told Gracie any love for her baby would be an illusion banished by prayer, as if nothing she wanted or hoped mattered. Only the rules that had been set for her. The man who hurt Gracie had not been punished. Was that always the way that such things were? Whoever had decided that life should be played out as such a flawed, unequal game, that even when two were matched in affection, if both stumbled, just one must bear the blame. Her teacher was safe and snug in his hometown, in a sunny house with his pretty wife. He'd had what he wanted and not had to pause. His life went on without regret or strife, while Gracie was bereft of home and kinfolk, having lost innocence and hope and more. That's why she wept as she stood, holding her bag, frozen in the frame of the manor's door. It was the weight of loneliness that, at last, made her ring the bell and step slowly in. Another sacrifice brought to a place made unholy by a wicked person's sin. If Gracie had hoped to find understanding in the women who occupied the place, nuns were women too, and should understand that the world could be a big, confusing place. To those who could carry life, she was soon to find herself entirely disappointed. They were harsh, sharp, and cold, their thin lips narrow, expecting her to do just as they said. Some nuns' faith causes them to bring tenderness, compassion, good, and love into the world. Such nuns might well have proved boon companions to a friendless, scared, and pregnant younger girl. Sadly, the ones who dwelt within the manor conducted themselves in a way to shame the gentle being that they claimed to honor. Christ himself would be hard-placed not to blame. People so cruel, vicious, petty, and brutal as the nuns with their cloaks and souls of black. So many needless tears were cried in the place as to make the heart of high heaven crack. The mistress of the mother and baby home had once birthed a fatherless child herself, or so the rumor claimed. The father had been a young man who would inherit wealth upon the death of an elderly great-aunt. He'd told the nun that he would marry her when he came to his estate if she'd trust him. When she fell pregnant, he had laughed at her, then tossed her out, sighed without hesitation, into a winter night, pouring with rain. If the story was true, he'd never seen her, nor thought about his bastard child again. Even if every word whispered was correct, the woman retained no gentle mercy, no compassion for the girls who came to her. Most of them, as the term went, used badly. Often, she'd take a belt or cane to the girls. Who deserved it? Because they'd badly erred. The truth, Gracie learned, was very much simpler. She could harm them because nobody cared. Sister Ruth ran her house with whip and ruler. She kept the women under lock and key. Lessons and mealtimes were closely monitored. Lateness was punished immediately. When one girl tried to escape, she was locked up and left in darkness for many long days. When the nuns finally went to release her, the girl and her child had both passed away. There were still rumors about Angelita. The mothers-to-be saw and heard her there. They didn't talk to the nuns about her, though, even when she gave them a nasty scare. The bitter nuns would beat any girl, foolish enough to stand as a witness and insist. Strange things were going on. The nuns swore point blank that ghosts and ghouls simply did not exist. Subscribe to become a delicious darling. Well, what a beginning that was. It certainly gave me the shivers. What do you think is going to happen from here on out? The best way to find out is to join us next week. Today's word for the comments is ghost. Write it. Then tell me the scariest thing you have ever seen. If you have a moment, please hit the like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell. It only takes a moment, but means a lot to the channel. Right now, I am off to visit a local cat sanctuary. They have an early summer fete tomorrow, and I am helping to run a stall. Please do join us next week for the second part of the series. Until then, may your furry friends be happy. May the angels keep your toes forever warm. And sleep well, my delicious darlings.